Okay, continuing with the duality skills. But before we get into duality skills, let's finish up the last slide from the cohesive skills. So what's wrong with the ego, right? The ego instinctively resists and resents what is and is not when it is not to the ego's liking. And that's what's wrong with it. Not so much that having an opinion or a position is not a good thing, but in that it reduces your power, you get stuck, and the energy is dissipated away from actual work. Moving on, making others wrong, persecution and war, that's not moving towards the goal. We talked about. So, why all the problems we have with ego and duality? The duality, this is the introduction to duality skills. At the moment, before the Big Bang, there was only space. After the Big Bang, we have space and stardust. The explosion of the Big Bang, energy equals mass times speed of light squared, stardust was generated out, out of the energy. That conversion took place. Then we have space and non-space. So that's the first duality we have had in our creation. And then if you look at everything else in all of our creation, from tall to short, fast to slow, thick to thin, you have two extreme endpoints, extreme low point and extreme high point. Then you have everything in between. And typically, what you have in between is field. This is a continuum, and the continuum is pretty much field. And what the problem with duality is because of our upbringing, conditioning, human nature, we tend to pick a certain specific point at a specific time as our preferred point. So if somebody else is listening to loud music when you are not in the mood to hear that, to listen to loud music, you will have a reaction and that could escalate into a fight. And that's because we would choose a point on the continuum and say this is the truth and everybody has to agree with it or else. So extreme high point, extreme low points, and any point in between can be chosen as the truth when it is not the truth because of the law of diversity. As you can see, every single point between the fastest fish and the slowest fish in the ocean is filled. There will be fish swimming at various speeds in between the fastest and the slowest. So the fact that the continuum is filled, that means it is diverse. Diversity is multiple points, multiple perspectives are represented. So what we have here is we have the nature of creation, which says the law of diversity is an overarching principle that you can observe in all of reality, from people's faces, from your preferences, from how people like to sing or to paint or to walk, everything. The law of diversity reigns. And then we have the ego, the creator's complex. I'm right and you're wrong. Lots of people have lost their lives because of such persecutions, ethnic cleansing and genocides and so on, right? So the ego has the false unity. The ego picks a point on the continuum and said, this is the truth, but in reality, that's not how our creation is created. That's not how the universe has designed life. Life is designed to be diverse, and the human's ego's insistence on specificity, uniqueness, especially their own uniqueness to be the right one, directly contradicts the nature of our creation. And that's why there's a problem with the ego. So what's the answer? What's the solution? For us to acquire the qualities of water as talked about in the cohesive skills video, and you can see the various principles, the ways of water in the slides. And to stand as a bamboo tree, Chinese bamboo tree is not visible on the surface of the earth after you plant it because it is building an extensive, gnarly, strong, highly anchored root system underground. And in the fourth year, during the monsoon season, it can grow like 70, 80 feet. And somebody did some math and says the growth is almost like 1 inch per hour to grow that much in such a short amount of time. So cultivate, prepare, go deep to make sure we are properly anchored and we understand the entire ecosystem and that we know what are the principles prevailing at various dimensions and various levels. So when we do, rise up, when we do take on bigger responsibility, we will be able to handle it just like how the bamboo trees can be bent almost horizontal, touching the ground by a typhoon, but it will not be uprooted because it's prepared for that kind of environment by having the root system being the primary and the only focus for the first 4 years of the bamboo's life. So here's duality skills, right? The web of duality. This is very important because if a person is not able to survive or to transcend or to succeed in duality, then it's very difficult for the person to collaborate with other people, to lead groups and lead organizations. So this is the foundation, this is the basics. And one of the most important reasons for studying duality skills is to stay in play. Because if somebody takes you out and if you are fired or dismissed or removed or exiled, then you are no longer effective. Therefore, it is very important to understand duality skills and to remain in play. For example, in the company environment, in the family environment, infidelity or having extramarital affairs pretty much can splinter the relationships, right? That's pretty clear. In a company, it is best not to say anything whether you agree. If you disagree with something and they are not looking for input, for improvement, it's better for you not to say anything and not to tip your hat. And given that in some places the network of spies is so extensive, it's probably not a good idea to tell anybody about it. Just keep it to yourself. That way you are completely under the radar so that people cannot seek you out as a target to remove you from the scene. Number one. So in corporate America, in any company, any organization, basically insubordination, not following the chain of command, doing something illegal such as cheating, lying, or signing something saying it is true when it is not true, those are grounds for immediate dismissal. In addition, sexual harassment is also, can get you in trouble. Therefore, if you are going to be in a conference room with somebody that you don't really know, make sure, try to avoid it, or somehow invites somebody else to be there, because all you need is a person who yells rape, comes out with their hair, uh, disheveled and the dress somewhat torn. Nobody knows really who did it. It could be that person who did it herself or himself. But the point being, if you cannot survive duality, then you are no longer in play. Then you cannot make the contributions that you are supposed to make. That's the point. So what you see here on the screens, on the screen, is these are the 5 metastasizing cancers Dr. Stephen Covey talked about. If you YouTube it, you will find it. Our tendency to compete, compare, criticize, complain, and contend. He calls these the 5 cancers, right? So competing, that can show disrespect for your rival, the inconsideration. Compare. If I need to compare with somebody else who said that I'm good, to confirm that I'm good, that may point to that I have low self-esteem, right? That I have to be better than somebody else in order for me to be good enough. Criticize. When the person spends time criticizing other people habitually, it pretty much means they don't have any other skills and they don't have time to invest in themselves because they are so busy criticizing the world, right? It could mean that they are incompetent, and that would also foster their incompetence. It means they are weak. If you really have a way to get even or to get ahead or to do something, you don't have to spend and invest your energy and time and emotions to criticizing other people. Same thing with complaining. These are basically non-value added activities. Sure, sometimes when you scream loud enough, the squeaky wheel gets greased. You actually get what you want by complaining. But there are much more, how should I say, effective ways. I knew somebody who was fighting over $100,000 and they were going to court, this and that. Well, if one of them could make twice that in business, then the argument would be mute, right? Okay, contending. The next six are the six traits of the human nature. Human beings have the six human traits. Creator's complex. Somehow we believe we are right, and I have this intrinsic arrogance, unyielding, and I condemn people who are different from me habitually. I have to catch myself, so I stop doing it. Personal filter. We all know that somebody who is a female with 3 kids, their worldview is different than somebody who is 16. Tit for tat. We are not self-determined. We are determined by other people. When people treat us well, we feel good, and we would most likely reciprocate in kind. But when people don't treat us well, then we pretty much begin to misbehave as the other people. As how they have started, we pick up the lowest denomination of behaviors in the group. That's really not very smart. Tit for tat, the human trait. Shifting identity. Somebody praises me, somebody criticizes me. My identity is shifted from happiness to unhappiness, and so on. So we live in a referential reality where I cannot refer to anything other than referring to the people that I'm with or the place I'm at. So what's the point? The point is we need to learn to control our own identity and not have people shifted. And the monkey mind, the 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts going through the mind every day, that can cause you to be distracted, the negative self-talk, and the free-flowing stream of consciousness. Some fearful thought comes into the mind stream, and we might believe it. That's the problem. I've seen people who actually believe their thoughts. Whatever major stuff comes into their mind, they believe it to be true, and it's a very horrible way of living one's life, because then one is reacting to an illusion which caused fear, and then the emotion and the anger that follows that reaction to the illusion is also unreal. So it's just not a very good thing. So we must learn to control the mind, to meditate, and to be able to actually observe the world without projecting and attaching one's fear and emotion to it. Predisposition is the last human trait. Again, the law of diversity applies here, and people are diverse, they are different, and we need to make sure my tendencies, my habitual behavior do not get in the way of being an organization leveraged person, because it is a very difficult job sometimes, depending on where you are and what the circumstances are. So that's a quick summary of the web of duality. Try not to get stuck. Diverse points on continuum is non-value added dualistic points damage self and others, right? So we have some habits which don't really help anybody. They only make things worse. It's like poking my own eye with a sharp stick. It is better to just not do it, guessing why this and why not that, right? I can never get to the truth. And as I'm guessing, as I'm speculating, I'm having emotional responses. And if I think about it long enough, it becomes true for me, even though I may intellectually know it is not true. But when I do see the people whom I'm suspecting, I will have a negative feeling towards them. And guess what? People can pick it up. Where they are, what's their point? If this is the point, why did they not hire me? Why did they not fire him? And guessing the motives for other people's points. It's a lot of speculation, mind reading, reading tea leaves, but it's really not productive. It doesn't really add any value, because you can never really know the truth. And even if you really talk to the people, you may not believe what they tell you anyways. And language is such a tricky thing. So many words mean so many different things to different people. So argue about where their points are and were, wishing self and others to be on a different point, lamentations, woe is me, why did they do this, why did they do it, it's all a waste of time. Really no reason to go down that path. And I know it's very instinctive and habitual for me, but one can invest time and cultivate one's disposition and temperament to where one is not so easily disturbed and so easily off balance, and not to be stuck on a point. There is a principle called contextual excellence, contextual correctness, rather than universal or compliance correctness. If somebody goes, well, you got to do it this way, that way you can comply with it, but you may be an overkill. Maybe you're gonna. The one example Dr. Bello gives is somebody goes, well, clean the table, and then the key question, which we often don't ask, is clean the table for what? So you can stand on it, to move the boxes off the table so you can stand on it, or you're gonna cut meat or chicken on it, or what's the reason why you want the table to be clean? So that context would tell you what the correct job is, right? So somebody can say you are very sloppy, but there's really no reason to be any more precise given the purpose of what you're trying to do. And I actually got into trouble, I think. In some cases, because the projects were moving so slowly, there was really no reason to update the project schedule. I was able to track the project just with the meeting minutes and meeting agenda. And people saying, well, you as a project manager, you are not doing it right. And I pretty much said, planning horizon is how far you can look into the future. And we cannot really look too far into the future because people are unable to give estimations. And since if I cannot get estimations, there's really not much for me to track. Things are moving very slowly. So and also don't question the points on the continuum, right? The law of diversity says all the points will be filled. There will be some people who are extremely loving towards their kids, and there will be people who will be abusive towards their kids. And that we know we have two extreme endpoints, and then everything in between will be filled. So something may be shocking, unacceptable, horrible to me, but there's really no reason for me to question it, reject it, get angry about it. Some people like to park. When they park almost taking two spaces. And this coworker of mine was extremely upset. And okay, fine, you can choose to be upset. But some people, maybe she was in a hurry, he was in a hurry, maybe whatever the reasons were. And the next point is try to understand people's limitations and do not push people off their balance. And if they are stuck and attached to some preferred points, really no reason to disturb them, because for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, unless you are intentionally looking for an upset person to deal with. Otherwise you probably don't want to be doing that. All right, so basically the highest value add is to move towards a goal in the best possible, quickest way, and not spend any energy doing things which are not conducive to win-win. Therefore, no making waves, right? So the big red wolf wants to have chicken to eat rather than enjoying his prize and meal. He's there making waves. So the alternative is you serve the waves. The waves give you the energy. They tell you when to go, when not to go, because you need to ride the waves. So using cohesive skills in terms of leveraging the energy of other people, that's why people say even a kick in the butt is a step forward, right? So use that energy to move towards your goal. So one example of how to deal with discrimination and difficulties. Jackie Robinson, obviously everybody knows, when he joined the Major League Baseball, he was the first colored person, African American, and all the hardship he went through we saw in the movie. So just that is an extreme example. But for us, let's imagine you have a sunny personality. Somebody is giving you a cold shoulder. They are giving you verbal barbs, giving you a hard time. But then what you could or should do is to just focus on your work. Focus on doing what you need to do. rather than giving your power away and have somebody else's attitude, upbringing, preferences, ego disturb your peace and take away your time and reduce your effectiveness. That's really not a very good thing. So in essence, if you don't process something that you see as evil, then it is not. Don't talk about it, don't think about it, just bypass it. Doesn't do any good. And you do the Chinese bamboo tree thing, right? Anchor yourself, learn, research, grow, analyze, become an expert, and then that will give you more reason to have a sunny personality. Got the point to get off the web of duality. All of us are facing difficult situations or situations that we don't like. So in unity, how do we get to unity in duality when oftentimes we're faced with the points on the different continuums which we don't like? For example, I don't like how bright it is when I'm sleeping, my wife turns on the light, or the music is too loud when my daughter is in the car with me. How do we deal? Those are very simplistic daily examples, but it gets to be much worse while you are at work and people want to, I don't know, promote you or fire you. How do you deal with those situations? How do you maintain your ease, your freedom, and your hardiness, your toughness? And how do you get results, right? The recommendation from Dr. Covey is to be proactive, focus on your circle of influence. So in the context of duality skills is you pick continuums and points that you control 100%. What does that mean? For example, what you think is really up to you, right? What you see, how you see it, how you interpret it, what you say and what you do, those are really, really under your control. You have 100% control. Somebody may come and push your button and hit you over the head, but you have 100% control in how to handle the situation, as long as you don't let human nature and habitual patterns take over. For example, how many flights of stairs you want to climb, that's 100% up to you. How much you want to eat, how much you want to exercise, how much you want to let into your boundary. Those things, those continuums are entirely under your control. And the more you focus on those things, the more skillful you become. So if you going back to this extreme high point and extreme low point and all the points in between are filled. So we are training ourselves to a new predisposition where we accept and celebrate all points on the continuum. And Dr. Covey said in dealing with differences, so there's rejecting differences, there's tolerate differences, I put up with you but don't come near me, there's accept differences, there's honor differences, and then there's celebrating the differences. And it's for us to move habitually to where we honor and we celebrate differences between us and people, rather than persecuting them and becoming so righteous like I often am because of the human trait of creator's complex. I'm right and you are wrong. This is a very important trait of an organization leveraged person. So we can observe all the points, but there's really no reason to say whether you like it or not when somebody else is doing it. And in teamwork, when there are the opportunities, then we can, rather than feed back, because when you feed back, you are feeding into the past, and the past is dead, the past is gone, there's nothing you can do about it. So feed forward is okay, tomorrow, can we do this? Coach John Wooden said, Paul, you do such a great job at attacking the basket on the other end. Can you do something similar on this end by defending the basket? So there are different ways of getting people to collaborate without criticizing them and putting them in a defensive position. And feedback by nature is talking about the past, which is entropy, right? So let's go syntropy and looking into the future. Syntropy is growing into something more complex, more capable. And if the person is open to it and there's a value add, then that's what we should do. I talked about appreciative inquiry as part of the cohesive skills. So it's very important to always honor other people's contexts and choices of points, no matter how right you feel. So this is like a major, major paradigm shift, and the ego is bouncing off the wall and say, why should I? He's stupid, she's stupid, whatever, whatever. I don't want to give up. And with a lifetime of conditioning of where you see your parents or your friends and TV, everybody just bobbing each other over the head, to not get into a fight is such a counter-cultural, counter-human instinct kind of behavior. However, it is something that we have to acquire, and it can be acquired, and there are logical reasons and there are principles that one can use to come to those conclusions. Basically, when you yield, you are not giving up, you are not conceding to their way, you are not colliding at the moment as you reposition yourself holistically to move towards what you believe is right. So by having some deeper understanding and some practices, you will come to see that indeed the soft overcomes the hard, and it is much easier if you don't fight for you to win. That's kind of outside of this 1 hour high level overview. Avoid debates over where points land. Don't argue over the law of diversity and predisposition. Some things are given, right? Some people are a certain way. They are, I mean, no matter what somebody says, you know the law of diversity is applicable there. There's really no reason to debate over that. Or somebody prefers to eat rice cold, that's their upbringing. There's no reason to argue, and I guess some people do that. They help to improve people, but from the perspective of duality skills, the goal is to get the job done. It's not to be somebody's mom or to create a new personality for some people. The unity principles are acceptance, neutrality, reason, logic, know the way things are, to know the Tao. If a person is accepting the universe for whatever it is, as we experience it, that doesn't mean that we cannot change it going forward. But all he says is we don't spend too much energy bashing against what is. Neutrality basically is saying live and let live, right? You are not saying yes, you're not saying no, you are letting it be. You are observing it. And that will bring you to unity rather than a point on the dualistic continuums. Reason, right? People can have a bad day, they have their reasons, they have their choices, and their reason for doing that is this. We oftentimes we don't have the opportunity to find out what people have gone through in their lives, so they ended up a certain way. Even you or I may not know about ourselves because we have forgotten these things may have happened to us when we were very young that have shaped who we have become. So all of these, somebody being rude, perception of somebody being incompetent, somebody being unreasonable, or the government is devious, these things are kind of speculations and preferences on the dualistic continuum. And by having this unity principle of just being accepting, you are not stuck on the web. So whether it is due to narcissism or attachment, the web of duality is caused by identifying with points on the continuum, and it is innate, right? So now we are very much struggling against human nature. However, we can reprogram ourselves. We can, through the path of reason and principles and understanding, willingly and happily move towards a point of no conflict, no collision, because that is most advantageous to us. It's not about being good. It's about being practical. And by doing that, you have the most chance of surviving and succeeding. And I hate to say this, get the upper hand and get your way. So we talked about the two-faced clowns and monsters. The very fact that we label somebody as a clown, that is a dualistic statement. That is a rejection. That is judgment, and there's emotion associated with it. Musashi said, don't do useless things. Yes, it may make you feel good because that's how we are currently hardwired to be vengeful, to be vindictive, and we need to vent, we need to air things out. But it would be better for us to invest the time to re-hardwire our brain and to have a new predisposition that is more effective for us and for somebody else, for other people. So the number one target of a monster in our crosshair should be the organization dysfunction, right? And this is not really an attack on leadership. All this is saying is the person who, some people go, well, I don't like people who silo. They work individually in their own corner, in their own department. But for example, the silo for purchasing versus the silo of legal versus the silo of accounts payable, they are functional units and they work amongst themselves and across with the other functions, but they don't control the other functions. We need a manager who controls both functions to say, okay, let's do it this way, or we need the leadership who owns all the functional areas to say this is how we should collaborate. And therefore, necessarily, the organization dysfunction belongs in the realm of organizational leadership. So it's not finger pointing, not blaming, it's just pointing out this is the way things work. This is how organizations are led. And here we talked about, the point for this table is to show when we have the central command, whether it's a manager or leader, in some cases they do not give clear signals to the team. In some cases they do, but the messages are the signals when they get to the recipients, they are wrong, they are incorrect. And then in some cases the signals got there correctly, but the people don't know how to execute properly from a lack of training. Here's a lack of understanding. When the correct signals are received, but you could not execute properly, or when the incorrect signals are received, then the question is how come the command got lost. So anyways, so we can look at various scenarios there and come up with solutions that would customize our actions in our specific group or company. Antidotes, chain of command, right? So if the problem begins with leadership and the organization is unable to execute, that means something is wrong with the chain of command. It is something got lost along the way. Command control actually is a good thing when the leader knows what to do, exactly how to do it, so the leader can call out the moves and dictate, do this or else. That really says competent leadership is a prerequisite for taking the command and control approach. However, if the leader is not 100% the SME or really understands what's going on and insists on doing things a certain way, that can spell disaster for the company and for the profit. So rather than that, nowadays in the information age, with the knowledge workers we have, with hundreds and thousands of employees we have in one company, in some cases across hundreds of countries, command and control becomes increasingly difficult. That's why you have vision of the company, the values of how we treat one another at GE or at Citigroup, and then we follow the management principles and the production processes. That's how most major corporations, multinational corporations are managed. And a quick review, right? The process ninja skills. Output equals input plus process. So if you are moving from point A to point B, so point B equals starting point A plus the process with zero non-value added activities in between. All the steps add significant value. Cohesive skills, we talked about that. Those who are capable must accommodate those who are less experienced. So when you deal with dependent people, independent people, or interdependent people, an organization leverage person needs to be highly interdependent and also be able to compensate for the people who may not be fully experienced in certain processes and principles. So let's just say organization dysfunction. Tom Peters says cross-functional excellence and cross-functional execution basically project management, cross-functional project management, excellence and execution are competitive advantages, right? So people are focused on solving problems and not so much busy following commands. I heard that in the government or in nonprofit organizations, if you want to get, if you want to not get into trouble, just do what you are told, and then you will be fine, even if it's the wrong thing. I guess in those cases, you don't really have to produce the correct results. Therefore, they can play games like that, and to be out of touch with the customers and the reality of the quality of their work. Again, here is appreciative inquiry. Modeling the behavior, never colliding, always show appreciation, understanding, and connecting to the other's points. And then you elevate. The example in YouTube that I saw in one of the appreciative inquiry videos is that this hotel was doing very badly, and they were getting like a 2-star or 1-star. So rather than browbeating the team, what they did was they took the entire team to a 5-star hotel and let them stay there for maybe 2 weeks, and then the hotel staff gave them a send away party when they finished. And then when these staff members went back to their own hotel, their performance automatically improved. And that's an example of appreciative inquiry, where they actually experienced something uplifting and they were able to copy it. Organizational dysfunction, the solution equals process ninja skills plus cohesive skills plus duality skills plus leaders edge skills. So this is then we have cases where leadership refuses to cooperate, either because they don't know or they don't want to, or they have a different perspective. Besides, I mean, we can always say what makes me think I'm right. Why? And in my mind, principle-centered leadership means you are following the principles. You are using the compass of where true north is, stakeholder needs and the principles and the processes, and that will lead you. So people have, over the last decades, have come up with the principles of grassroots leadership. If leadership is unavailable to lead, whether they're afraid, they want to sabotage any progress, or they don't have the knowledge or the skill, and it's better to just play safe by keeping things the way they are, and or they can be just too busy surviving the daily crises or enjoying their prestige of leadership. Whatever the reasons are, what do we do? Right? The leadership, they do not ask people to participate, to provide feedback. So, I mean, all of us know people. In some cases, I was very much like that. My ego was so big, I couldn't take any advice or any opinions from anybody else to improve myself. So, on a personal growth perspective, if somebody is lacking something, and that person is too proud or too angry or too arrogant to accept help to learn how to do that some task that the person needs to do, but doesn't have the skill to do it, then the person is stuck, right? So the organizational equivalent is the same thing. When the ego is greater than the skills, but you still don't want to learn, then you are stuck. Grassroots activities include elevated pitches. If the environment allows it, as long as you're 100% sure harm will not come to you, you can, how should I say this? You can act and behave as if the CEO is behind something. You can carry on that way and try to get connected and try to influence as many people as you can in the course of your work. This is not to say you're going to become a trainer or you're going to be witnessing the truth with everybody at work. It will be a waste of time. It will make you into a target, and you'll be annoying many different people. So approach this with extreme caution. Frugality by removing waste in redundant processes. So there are things that you can do. There are things that you can talk about in the right environments, with or without the sponsorship of senior leadership. Meaning, we don't need
the CEO to tell you you need to do the right thing and you need to be conscientious about the cost of the company. You don't need somebody from way up to tell you that you need to do that, right? You can, I mean, I, I was that way for many years, but I know some coworkers, even nowadays, they are not focused on making the best of their time. They spend a lot of time hanging around other people's offices and talking by the water coolers for long periods of time. I'm not here to judge or trying to say people are wasting their time, but the point is whether the company or whether the project or whether the leadership, whether the managers care or don't care, it is my own prerogative to invest in my own skill for my own future because this is my life. But somehow that is lost on some people. To summarize, the art of execution framework is crucial for every single worker on earth to learn because they can learn within, let's say, be exposed to the theory and knowledge behind the art of execution framework within a week, within a month, which will allow them to really benefit and to learn and to improve and to grow over time. Cross-functional excellence and execution are strategic. They need leadership support. However, if you don't have leadership support, then you need to do whatever you can do within your sphere of control. Grassroots process improvement. So some hospitals, some organizations actually succeeded in the grassroots leadership. And this person came out and said, well, it's not so much about the templates and the flowcharts that you produce. It's about hope, respect, and voice. It's about what Coach John Wooden said, the person who figures out how to tap into the collective genius of everybody is going to blow away the competition. And without making yourself a target, do the right thing, say the right thing to the right people when you can. Don't be a nuisance. Don't become an evangelist that people hate. Grassroots principles, you come through your career, take each project as a challenge, connect with other people. It's all about people. People often get confused. So process improvement is templates. It's a proper documentation. It's anything but people. But the bottom line is process improvement quality is about the people, about people having the skills. 7 steps to sustaining success, Tom Peters, and this seems to be so straightforward. Yet in some organizations, it just boggles my mind. They do 100% the opposite. Therefore, it tells me that they have a reason to not do it right. And that's a long story, right? To take a walk on the dark side. Take care of the people. People take care of the service. Service take care of the customer. Customer will take care of the profit. Profit will take care of the reinvestment. Reinvestment will take care of the reinvention. And reinvention will take care of the future. And you gotta be excellent every step of the way. Herb Kelleher, the CEO of Southwest, says love is better than fear when it comes to managing people. And Herb Kelleher said, what did he say? He said, when you take care of your people, when people whose needs are met are better able to meet the needs of the customers. And I think that's a very simple and powerful truth. And quality, right? Quality is a result. Quality is a process. Quality is like a bunch of grapes. It doesn't just show up from thin air. And it took time for the grapes to grow. It took time for the grapes to become sweet. Cross-functional process mapping. Some people go, let's improve the process. I was actually in projects like this, and it really took me a long time as to why the process was not working. Then I found out there were some conflicts, severe conflicts between the managing directors, between the two different groups, and that's why they were unable to come up with this better process cross-functionally. Cross-functional cooperation and trust is very important before you can get together and do cross-functional process improvement. And cross-functional trust is based on functional trust, right? If Group A doesn't trust people within Group A, how can Group A trust Group B? Functional trust depends on functional integrity and competence, right? Trust is based on integrity and competence. Yes, you will do what you say you will do, and you know how to do what you say you will do. Going back to the 7 habits of the definition of trust, and then interpersonal trust, integrity, and competence is the dependency for functional trust for the group. Everybody in the group should have that level of competency before the group is competent. And then the bottom line is personal trustworthiness, integrity, and competence is the fruit. Whatever initiative, whatever conflict we are trying to resolve, quality we are trying to improve, anything, even pay reduction, even layoff, whatever it is, it all starts and ends at the personal level. Therefore, you don't have to be the CEO to first figure out what is right for you and the organization personally. And then when you work and deal with other people, to the extent that they will not harm you, they will not come after you, you are welcome to share what you think, and then things will improve. The quality reformation of a corporation begins with building the character of its people. This is said by Junichi. Page 62, change management. So organizational change got to go through a life cycle: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcements, EDCAR. Very important. If you don't have clear and visible senior leadership sponsorship, 75-80% of the change initiatives in organizations fail. Be the best. Be your personal best. You don't need the CEO's sponsorship to do that. And being an organizational leverage person is the best you can do at a personal level, interpersonal level, managerial level, and organizational level. I believe is actually a long and hard, difficult road to really master this. It will take, if you dedicate your time, 40 to 80 hours to have the landscape overview of the art of execution. And then depending on how focused you are and how hard you train yourself, you will actually acquire the leader's edge skills and duality skills, cohesive skills, and process ninja skills. All of the skills are fairly simple and knowledge based. The only skill that's really, really difficult is the duality skills and cohesive skills, because those involve the need to change yourself and become a new creation and become a new person, so you don't end up in too many fights along the way and get stuck on the web of duality, right? Michael Phelps won 22 Olympic medals at a very young age. His coach said he's going to go to the Olympics, I think, at age 13. That's syntropy. It's a baby sequoia tree growing into a giant sequoia tree. And I think I just saw Michael Phelps a couple of weeks ago on TV saying he lacks confidence. He feels like a big hunk of what? So fine. So he's a good swimmer. Now he has to find himself in outside the water. 3 good P's: planning, preparation, preventing crisis. So good luck. Call me anytime. I do personalized free training, and I love to learn from you. And again, all this stuff is invitation to engage. It is not final polished work. Contents continues to evolve. So I'm very eager to pass this on to somebody. I want to perfect it in my lifetime and hopefully sometime soon. But if nothing else, I want to definitely pass this on to the next generations, because I believe all of us, many of us, will be working for a long, long time, for generations to come. And I want to share this package, this framework, to reduce suffering and to advance consciousness. All right, keep in touch. There's my phone number.